Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another Venture and Capital interview session. Today, I have the founder of Foundr Magazine, Nathan Chan, who's, if you look at sort of from a social media perspective, has built an incredible following online. With Instagram alone, it's sort of been over 3 million followers. And for me, as a founder, I obviously admire the kind of following and audience that you've built up over time. So welcome, Nathan, to the session.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. Absolute pleasure to be here.
So as a first start, please just give us the history of Foundr and also your sort of background as well.
Yeah, sure thing. So Foundr is an online media and education company. I started in 2013, so 7-8 years ago. And really, it started off as a magazine. I started, honestly, just as a passion project, hobby project for fun. Didn't know it would go anywhere because I was trying to get a job in marketing. So I started while I was working in IT support. That's what I used to do. This is my first business. And along the way, just fell in love with the work, fell in love with the brand and realized there was a real need to create content that was extremely actionable, that people could really resonate with, and interview founders that have actually done it and really have a strong curation and thought process around, if someone has done it, what does that look like? What experiences can they share to really help others? So what started as a magazine has now become kind of like a platform, and we produce so much content in many various ways, and we're really focused on the online education side of the business as well. And we're trying to build really like a leading online school with incredible teachers that have actually done it once again. So, right now, millions of people consume our content every single week. And we're aiming, we want to build a brand that helps tens of millions of people every single week with our content. And that's us.
Thanks for that background, Nathan. So to understand as a first step, so you've been doing it since 2013 now. So for us, we've been obviously building our platform, building our business. We've got 30,000 sort of high net worth and professional investors. And for me, over the last 12 months, literally 12 months ago, we were doing no video content whatsoever, no interviews, no anything, right? And now that's completely changed. And for me, as I sit here, when I think about what you've done, it's I would love to be able to create that sort of type of audience, that sort of type of influence. And I'm sure many other founders would, especially for their areas that they deal in. Now, of course, not everyone has a sort of mass market topic to go after, but even if it's in niche areas, if they can sort of build influence. So when you're sort of speaking with founders and they look at what you've been able to do with your business, what are typically the first steps you guide them through?
Yeah, so look, I think when it comes down to building an online platform and building a large scale audience, I think it starts with choosing one channel and being extremely consistent. So one, you mentioned offline before we were recording, you heard me do an interview with Gary Vee, right? And one thing that he taught me was you need to master them all, right? And we at Foundr haven't mastered them all. We're slowly chipping away. I don't believe we've mastered editorial, our blog and articles, but, we get hundreds of thousands of visitors every month, but I don't think we've nailed that yet. And same with podcasts. We're building a podcast network where in the next couple of years, we'll have 20, 30 shows. I don't think we've mastered that yet. Or YouTube. I don't believe we have one of the largest entrepreneurial YouTube channels out there. Not even close, right? We only have 150,000 odd subscribers, right? So I think it's good to just take stock and think, well, if you want to build an online platform which really, or an online community, it starts with content. It always starts with content. So if we know that it starts with content, then what channel is it that we're going to focus on to conquer? Is it Instagram? That's been a really good channel for us. Is it podcasting? Is it video? Is it written? Is it audio? I don't know, but you have to start with a channel. It could even be email. You look at what The Hustle's done, or Morning Brew with the daily newsletter, right? but you need to choose one channel, like one content-based channel. And then whatever that channel is, you need to commit to the discipline of just like insane execution of just, if I'm going to produce a podcast every single week, then I will just do it every single Thursday. It's coming out, it's coming out, it's coming out. And the day that it doesn't go out, then you've lost, right? And we at Foundr, ever since it was just me, I've set up these content disciplines that compound over time. And then over time, we've assigned owners within the company. And as the companies expand, we've got owners that own the success of that particular channel, or teams that own the success of that particular channel. And they're just refining. And it's not just around audience growth or numbers, it's around engagement. And it's also for us commercial, like how do we enroll more students in our paid courses, right? If we don't, that's fine. But still, from a commercial perspective, those are the three things that we're thinking about: audience size on that channel, engagement on that channel, and the commercial value from that channel. And it could even just be leads. It could be prospects. It doesn't have to be a straight dollar value or whatever, or conversion, or sold this many products or services or whatever. But those are things you need to think about. So if we recap, what's the channel you're going to choose? What's the first one? 2, what is the discipline that you're going to commit to, and setting up that? And then who is going to own it, whether it's you as the CEO or whoever, who's going to own that channel? And then what are the targets? What is the audience growth? What is the engagement? And what is the commercial outcome we're trying to drive? And then we start with that, and then we move on to the next one over time. But yeah, that's the first place to start.
And to add to that, like when you're thinking about doing a bit of content, whether it be for Instagram or whether it be for YouTube, what is the actual first thought that's going inside your mind before you even post it, whilst you're thinking about it, maybe in your weekly planning session? Like what goes through your head outside of the business outcome? How are you thinking about how you position that content to sort of connect with your audience?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, right? So one thing that we're very big fans of is spinning content, right? So you can start with like a pillar piece. So, the Gary Vee content model where he starts with like that pillar piece and then strips it down into micro pieces of content. So if you just say YouTube as an example, like our modality, our discipline with that is 3 videos a week. Now we're testing different things. Like you can go and look at our YouTube channel right now, and you can see a lot of the times that interviews don't perform. Like interviews do not perform. So now we're testing how-to videos, but we have some different types, different content types. We have interviews, how-to videos, and we messed around with blogs. We're going to bring that back, but interviews and how-tos, right? So interviews, how do we take that one interview and then splinter it out into many different things? So for us at Foundr, if let's just say we wanted to, have an interview series like yourself, we record it on video, so then it's going to be posted on YouTube. Maybe not, because it's not working for us. We know it can be an email, like it can be an email piece of content to our community. We know we can cut that up into what we call meme videos, where we find the headline and then we take a snippet of that where it's teaching something, or it's a sneak peek. We know also that we can turn that into a carousel. We know we can turn it into a blog post. We know we can turn it into also a magazine feature and story. We know we can turn it into an audio podcast. So that one interview can be, and we've got a system, like, a project management system using Asana, that it just like that one, it starts with that one idea and then it moves across and it gets splintered out. Now, when it comes to answering a question around an idea, that's something that we're getting better and better and better at. But like for us, the more time that you can spend on the ideas of like content ideation, the better. And the stuff that works really has to come from testing. Like you have to use data and signals to find out what resonates. So as an example, we never used to want to talk about, like in a business context, I was not keen on us talking about content, like I like this concept called evergreen content, because the idea of evergreen is it lasts the test of time. Like you can teach finance principles, right? There's certain principles around cash flow management that won't change 20 years from now. So I like the idea of Foundr creating just as much evergreen content as possible. But what we've found is sometimes when we go against that, we can find like certain verticals or areas that take off. Like, for example, we've found a really hot topic is Facebook ads. And that shit changes all the time, like all the time, like new changes, this iOS update, all these different things. So what we try and do now is, I'll just say what we try and do now is post as much evergreen content as possible so that content gets, like it grows over time because it's like planting a seed, but we do try and choose hyper relevant stuff, and we're putting out and testing things. So we've got our core, but then we're testing other things, and then those other things from a data perspective or signals perspective might be a whole kind of spin-off series of stuff. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Close. Now, I've got one more part to it. So it does actually answer the question, but what I want to do is go right before that. So when you're doing those ideation or those idea sessions with your team, are you watching what other people are doing from a content perspective, or are you as a team basically brainstorming, going, look, I've seen this taking off here, or what does that idea generation part look like when you're having those sessions around, what content are we going to be focusing on?
Yeah, so look, I'll be honest, we just put in like a next level leader in the business who's our head of content. Her name's Chloe, and she's starting to really help kind of operationalize this much more strongly, because that's not one of my strengths. But I can tell you that there's a few different ways. You can look at inspiration, right? For sure. Yeah. You can look at, let's just say we're looking at YouTube. We can see like who the top channels are around entrepreneurship, and we can see what those most viewed videos are. And a lot of the time, success leaves clues. And if we're going to do a video around that topic, that's one of that, someone that's similar in our space, we want to make sure it's better. That's the first thing, right? If you're going to draw inspiration, you want to make sure it's better. So yes, you look at other thought leaders in your marketplace always, and you look to reinvent the wheel some way, shape, or form and make that piece of content better. But then at the same time, like I cannot share enough, for us at Foundr, one of the biggest things that I think we've neglected, but we're really starting to focus on now, is looking at the data. Like I'll give you another example. When we create those micro pieces of content, so we do an interview, we create those headlines, and those headlines is what does all the talking, right? If you get the right headline, that can be the difference between 2,000 views on a video versus 300,000 or 500,000, right? So the more of these micro pieces of content that we put out and see which headlines hit a nerve from the data, we're going to take that headline, we're going to create a full article on it, we're going to create a full video on it. Like We're constantly looking for those signals. So it's really one, source of inspiration, looking at thought leaders and other people in your space, and then two, testing, looking at the data, and just we know the space,
And I have to dig deeper. I just can't resist. So inspiration for headlines, right? Because I know when so my background comes from a marketing background, right? Then sort of as a corporate advisory, and then sort of wholesale investor. So love the copywriting area, love the headline aspect. So I'm just curious as far as, once again, the ideas behind headlines, like to give people idea, like how many headlines will you test, or where are you? Like, as far as what are you looking at to understand what headlines are driving interest at that time, outside of the work that you're doing?
So we have benchmarks. We have benchmarks for those micro pieces of content. So we know if a piece of content gets views in 300, 400, 500,000 plus on Instagram, we know that that's a signal to go and spin out more stuff with that particular headline. We also look at, sometimes, not as much as we should, but paid advertising. So we do a lot of paid advertising on various courses, and we're testing a lot of different angles and headlines and ads. So we know like we start to learn around a particular vertical or topic what those headlines are and what are those signals. How many headlines do we create? Probably not enough. And yeah, those are some of the things that we're working on operationalizing. But I think the key takeaway there is like the headline matters. And if you can get there's a world, and this is what we've talked about within our content team, is there's a world that if we make our copywriting better, we could double, triple, quadruple the engagement of the business of our content without having to drive more actual growth or community size, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that we're thinking about a lot. Like, how do we get better with headlines and it comes back to that topic, right? Topic ideation or content ideation. It's like, really, how do you find the stuff that people truly care about? And the more data that we can use to back that up, the more we can go down and building brand and larger scale communities with our content. But it's not something we've mastered, to be honest, Steve. And we're getting there. But for us,
with 3 million viewers, you are, let's just say you said the success leaves clues. I'm sure there's some clues in there.
Yeah. But like for us, if you think what we're doing is good job now, like in next couple of years, we will be 100xing the amount of content we're putting out. Like, we're only scratching the surface. Like, we have never really invested that heavy in content. It's only this year, like I said, like we're building a significant team of 15, 20 plus. Like, that's what we're working
Yeah,
for.
wow.
We're only like 5 or 7 right now.
And typically with social media brands, often there's either a post or a sort of sequences of events where sort of things go from like that to sort of the pivot and what was that sort of moment for you where you just saw your different, whether it be your Instagram channel or your sort of YouTube channel actually just substantially take off?
Instagram was an interesting one. Because that was early days when it was really just me, right? And I was owning it, and it was taking off. And that was really, in many ways, something that I refined over time, and it's just been a really, really good channel to us. You're always going to have your breakout channels, right? Like, even Gary Vee has openly said that he just doesn't get YouTube, and him and his team can't work it out, right? Isn't that crazy to hear?
Yeah.
You can have your breakout channels and ones that you're stronger on. I think, for Gary, he's really strong on an Instagram or a TikTok. I don't think he's that strong on editorial or blogging either, right? So you're going to have your breakout channels. So to answer your question, when do you know? I don't know. Like, look, our YouTube channel, I don't think we've got that exponential growth yet. We haven't cracked it. Like, now here's what's interesting though. You want to hear the good stuff, right? I can tell you that from a commercial standpoint, from a clickable traffic attribution standpoint, that our YouTube channel is not that far behind our Instagram channel in terms of commercial student like revenue driven. So isn't that fascinating, right? 150,000 subscribers versus 3 million followers. Now, we're about to massively unlock things with our Instagram following because I don't want to get too technical, but Facebook have enabled messenger bots on Instagram and all sorts of things, which we're like an early stage beta tester. And we're going to do some really innovative things on that front, where basically if we do a post, if we tell someone to leave a comment, then we can capture their details and we can do all sorts of crazy things there now. If they leave a comment, we define it, and then we can have like conversations via direct message on Instagram. So look, long story short, YouTube's a powerful channel. Have we seen exponential growth? I don't know. I don't think we have, and I don't know when that happens. But it's got to be like any product development process where it's iterative, right? You just keep getting better and better and better. And it starts with creating better content on that channel. It starts with getting better engagement on that channel. It starts with building a community and responding to people. And then it starts also with collaborations. So those are some key things that you can apply across board to any channel you want to master, right? So let's just say you want to master a podcast, right? You've got to iteratively make your content better and better. You've got to iteratively see where people drop off. You've got to iterate to the point where it's just awesome. And you've got to also make sure you do partnerships and collaborations. Yeah. That is key across any channel. I did it on Instagram. We're doing it on blogs. Like we do it on articles. Like we do it on every channel. YouTube, it's how it is, because you want to be able to tap into other people or brands' audiences that are native to that platform. Like if we post on our Instagram, like, hey, go and subscribe to us on our YouTube, we don't get much traction. It's almost not even worth it. Like it's better to get people that are loving YouTube, watch other YouTubers, are interested in watching YouTube on that space, and get them to subscribe, because they're just much more engaged. So yeah, in a roundabout way, I hope that answers your question. I know it really did.
It does. No, I love it. So for me, I suppose what I really want to translate is that there's a great opportunity for founders if they can position themselves as thought leaders in their own area, right? And I think for anyone that's building their own business, you want to own your own space. Like for me, the area that I'm super passionate about is capital raising. And I've spent the last 2 years trying to understand, how do you turn capital raising from this mysterious dark art into a science, right? And then now that we're sort of gone through that and we're doing more workshops, I then want to understand, how can I influence a whole generation of founders that are going through the process of raising capital to be a part of that influence? And that's just me in my specific area, but there's other companies that could be, scientists that are focused in life science that, want to own their specific area. And I noticed that there's a lot more ASX listed companies that are also being a lot more proactive on their social media as well as there's a lot more sort of, let's call it, investor relations channels and all that sort of stuff. So for all of us, whilst in my specific area, it's really, the adoption is actually quite new. In your area, it said, there's already been a whole bunch of work done in the space, which I suppose other people can follow. So that's why I love this, and I'm fascinated by this sort of deep dive with you on understanding this as a topic. Now, the next one I have for you is, you've obviously, if I think about how to build a social media audience, I'm coming to you for that guidance, right? Because you've done it. The second part that I'd love to ask you is if you're giving advice to founders that could be in, let's say, technical areas like what I mentioned, life science or advanced tech or deep tech, or, even just any sort of fintech, name all the different techs there are to name. Yes. Like, what is your guidance for them about how they can start engaging and creating their own? Now, you're doing it at mass, so it's a lot, you're sort of doing a lot.
It's our business.
What guidance is that starting point for them?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Steve. Look, one thing to understand is, like, we're a media company. So yes, we like that is our business. We're in the business to do that. But I see what you're saying from a B2B standpoint. Like, if you have a fintech, like how do you build a community and audience on some of these platforms, right? So I think you talk about success leaves clues, famous Tony Robbins one, right? Like, first things first, if you're looking, you want your brand or you as an individual to become a thought leader, you have to look at what others are doing in your space. I think that is really, really key. Like, before, I even started on Instagram as an example. I looked at like what Foundr Magazine was doing on the social side, or Forbes, and I looked at even what content they were posting. And I think, you don't have to start from scratch being like, oh, I've watched this, or like, oh, I don't know what to do, like it's too hard, or I'll hire someone and they're going to tell me. I think coming back, if we just come back to ground zero, like, choose one channel. Like, maybe there's a world, right? If you have a fintech brand, like, I don't know if it is actually worth Afterpay having an Instagram account. Like, let's be real. Like, do you think you could unlock serious growth from Afterpay having an Instagram account? Maybe not.
Maybe their
However,
maybe their partners would love Afterpay having an Instagram
yes,
account.
yes, that's right. So, however, right, maybe if Afterpay created business related content around how to get more sales from an audio podcasting perspective or from an articles perspective, and just had the most comprehensive library when it comes to, e-commerce, like then now we're talking, right? So I don't think there's a one size fits all. Every business should be on social. I think it comes down to, the space that you're in and how you can really speak to your target market, and what kind of content can you create that you see other brands creating that you can draw inspiration from. So, yeah, I think that's the best way to approach it, Steve, because I think sometimes B2B can be hard, and it doesn't mean
Agreed.
that like Afterpay should be creating TikToks, right? And I think there's this thing that one of my mentors taught me, which is called situational stage advice. Just because Gary prescribes that TikTok is the next big thing doesn't mean every single brand should be on TikTok. It really comes down to the target audience. Are they on that platform? Are there other brands or thought leaders speaking to that target audience on that platform? And how can you create content that is in line with is in line with your current brand, And I hope that answers your question, because I don't want to, I don't want to complicate.
No, it 100% makes sense. Like for me, like obviously we deal with high net worths and we deal with founders of sort of growth companies that are typically raising 1 million to 10 million. So let's just say our team putting out a TikTok video may not be the ideal platform for us, but LinkedIn has been a really good home for us. And also like what you said about YouTube, like we definitely don't get, many views like compared to, what you would expect from a high view count. But I know the value for us from a whole bunch of levels, whether it be recruitment, whether it be educating our clients, also in having our investors be able to watch content after we've sort of released it in their sort of own time. Like it still amazes me how much of that content gets seen, and then we get sort of comments back from it. So, picking it's interesting that, the way you sort of broke that down. And as I appreciate your time, as a final question I have for you, is there any sort of hacks that you figured out along the way? And now I know you've got a team that's helping you, but when you're doing it by yourself and you had that pressure on yourself to put out content, and just noting that typically founders are fairly busy people, right? So doing this sort of stuff, like I'm doing this meeting in between like back-to-back other meetings in the time, like I'm not, and that's how they would typically be done. Is there any sort of hacks that you've learned as far as how to do it quickly, get the production done quickly? Do you outsource it? Do you any hacks that you've come across that could just help people to get that over the line and just to kick off the process?
Yeah. So it depends where you're at, right? When you could be like me that just has no time now, and you need to build, you need to just start, right, with someone, right? I think if you're in a position where you want to allocate some capital to this part of your business, I think you need to, whoever you hire, like a content creator or whatnot, right? Make sure that person's done it before at whatever business they're at, and then the way that I've done it, and the best hack I can give you is find someone that you think is doing a channel that you want to start with. Choose one channel, whatever that channel is. Find someone that's doing it at an exceptional level, and you'll find them online. There's people, and pay them like a whatever it is for their consulting call for 2 to 3 hours with that person that you've just hired, and that person will develop the plan, and you'll shortcut as many learnings as possible. Like that has been one of the biggest unlocks for me personally when it comes to this stuff, especially this online stuff. Like for example, with the Instagram stuff, I was lucky to meet some people in the early days that helped me really unlock all of that growth stuff. And just shortcut learnings, because that's what it's all about, right? Like,
correct.
Like I said, it's about reiterating, like an iterative product process. So why are you iterating? To learn? Like, the faster you can learn and tweak the framework of how you put out the content, how you build and how you build community. Like, it's just so critical that if you can shortcut those learnings, that so if you find someone that's done it, like as an example, we're still not there with our YouTube channel, but I've lined up a consulting call with someone that's built, I think, it's at least 15 to 17 YouTube channels in the 1 million plus subscribers.
Yeah, wow.
So they must know what they're doing, right? They must.
And this is the level game, right? Like, I look at 150,000, I think that's amazing. Right. I absolutely think it's incredible to build that. Whereas you obviously look at that and think, well, that's crap compared to what I would expect for myself. And then you're going to a higher level. So I think that's fantastic advice for anyone that's sort of kicking off a process, because you're right. Trying to figure out everything yourself, number one, it just takes far too long. Number two, you end up spending a whole lot more money than what you would have if you just invest, even if it's a day, a week, it doesn't matter. Like and the sort of long-term benefits sort of outweigh that sort of short-term investment, that's for sure.
Yeah. And look, coming back to your previous question, Steve, around like what you guys are doing, one thing to think about, like I was just thinking, like I'll give you an example. There's a company called SlideBean, SLIDE Bean. They produce a lot of content on YouTube, and it's a strong channel for them in the B2B space. I know that they have a particular video on raising capital, right? And it's one of their top videos, right, around raising capital. So what that tells me is that a brand like that, obviously there's something there around education on raising capital. So if we know that exists, then there's a world where you can create a channel that is purely dedicated to raising capital and just getting better and better and tackling all the different topics and every which way, and you will build thought leadership. Because I think the whole game of this is like, the more content you create, it develops influence. And the more influence you build, then the more likelihood you can be a brand or product or thought leader of choice when it comes to doing business. And that's in the most simplest form. That's what, like, I think about, and that's all that Gary Vee is doing. That's why he produces so much content, because the more content you create, the more influence you build. Now, it's got to be good, right? It's got to be good, but some of it will be rubbish, and you have to be okay with that. But if you can just put that on steroids, then you can become a thought leader, or your brand can have really high thought leadership.
Nathan, this has been an incredible session for me personally. I've learned a lot from doing this with you, and I hope it's sort of as much value to any sort of founders and investors that are watching this on behalf of their company. Congrats to you on what you've built, and I look forward to obviously seeing what you do over the next sort of couple of years. I follow you on Instagram, haven't started following you on YouTube yet, but I'll obviously subscribe after this discussion. But thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Steve. Absolute pleasure.